Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Nerdy Niche Podcast, the podcast about all the nerd stuff that you love. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about a franchise that has been around for a very long time and is near and dear to the hearts of millions and millions of people around the world. And we're very excited to be bringing on our very first international guest, so that is amazing for the show. So let's go ahead and get into it. First with me, as always, is my lovely heterosexual life partner, Edison Myers. How you doing today, Ed?
I'm doing really good. How are you, Jeremy?
Doing fantastically. Ready to talk about some nerd stuff?
I mean, that's pretty much all I do.
What's the nerdiest thing you did this week, sir?
The nerdiest thing I did this week is I've been playing Elden Ring like mad, or when I can, when I have time. And I found out last night from playing with other people, I'm way behind on like everything. Um, but yeah, I've been really into that game. It's from the people who make Dark Souls, and one of the story writers on it was George R.R. Martin from they did Song of Fire and Ice, the Game of Thrones series. So it's very dark and it's very hard, but it's really fun.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, I think that's a pretty common theme for a lot of nerds this week. Seems like it's been a very, very popular game. As someone who only plays Nintendo games, I'm probably not going to get to it anytime soon. But I've seen some gameplay footage, and it looks really pretty for sure.
It is really pretty.
All right. And we're going to be bringing on our guest for today, the lovely Miss Lisette. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jeremy. Thanks for asking.
All right. Well, what is the nerdy thing you did this week?
I guess I'm not as nerdy as you two are, because I guess the nerdiest thing I did was watching Super Nanny on YouTube.
All right. Yeah, if falling down a YouTube rabbit hole can be
how
pretty
to
nerdy.
control the kids.
Oh yeah, yeah. You work with kids there. You were from Holland.
Yeah.
So you work with kids down there, right?
Yeah. During the week, I work with small kids, 0 to 4-year-olds. And during the weekend, I'm a leader at scouting, 7 to 11-year-olds. So there's a big age gap, and both have their own challenges. Let's just say it like that.
Yeah, I'd be willing to bet they do. Yeah. All right. Well, we're here to talk about Harry Potter, which I know that you love. So let's go ahead and get started asking, what is the first experience you ever had with Harry Potter? How was it introduced to you?
My first experience was my mom read the book, and she was so excited about it. She was like, "Oh my God, Lisette, you have to read this." And I was like, "Why?" And then she showed me the movie, and I was like, "Okay, that looks okay." And then I started to read the book, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is so much better than the movie." So then I was hooked. Yeah.
All right. So I know here in America, at least there, for a lot of people, there was a sort of taboo about like the witchcraft and stuff involved. Was that really present over there in Holland, or
No.
no one cared over there?
No.
Seems about right. Yeah.
I mean, right about when it came out, I had my goth phase.
Okay.
So people at school called me Hermione and asked me, like, "Was the snake real?" And I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Because I haven't seen it yet.
Mm-hmm.
But when I finally found out what they were talking about, I was like, "Fuck yeah, I'd be Hermione. That's awesome."
Compliment. That's a compliment for sure.
That's awesome.
That's a compliment. I mean, I'm more like Luna, but that's a whole different story.
I mean, it's a compliment in the fact that really, like, you know, if you look at everything that happened, Hermione's the one who actually did pretty much everything. So
yeah, power in the brain.
Oh yeah, yeah, was definitely smart. So you know, at least they were calling you smart, right?
Yeah, well, in my opinion, she should have been in Ravenclaw because she has the brain for it and the book smarts.
I agree.
But she's great too. So
that's actually something we can get into, because I think there's a couple people throughout the series that are a little miscast as far as the houses that they're in.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, when we get into that, I have a whole thing I can say with that.
So we'll try to go in a little bit of a sequential order here. So you actually saw the movie first, then?
Yeah.
So what were your initial thoughts of the movie? It didn't seem like you liked it too much.
Well, when I first saw it, I liked the movie. I thought it was pretty cool, and I wanted to know more about that universe. So I started to read the book, and then I was really hooked. I read the first 6 books in Dutch, and around when the 7th book came out, I was an au pair in England, so I bought it in English first day when it was getting out. And that read so much better. All the jokes came out better and everything made more sense. So that's when I bought all the books in English.
Okay, that's interesting that it kind of comes out differently depending on the language that you're reading it in.
I guess that makes sense. If somebody's writing in one language and then it's being transferred over to another language, yeah, the
Yeah, it's
jokes
not going to go
wouldn't.
directly. Yeah,
Yeah, jokes just get lost in translation.
interesting. So when you read the first book, what you said that the book was a lot better than the movie. What would you say that they kind of left out that they shouldn't have?
Well, they left out different rooms when they went down after the dog,
Mm-hmm.
and you missed out on that. And they just left out so many details, like their first class, and damn, it's been too long since I've seen that movie. But
And yeah, all the
they,
things with Norbit as well, the little dragon, there was a lot more about him than Hagrid just getting him and hatching him. Like they had a whole thing where they were like trying to hide him and get him
Mm-hmm.
through an area, and they just kind of like skipped over it and we're like, oh, we sent him back.
yeah, and the biggest thing you missed, Peeves, the
Yeah,
poltergeist.
yeah, they did not really explain him at all. I do think he was in the first movie, but that was basically like he had an appearance and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you've only seen him for like a second, and it wasn't even clear it was him, but
Yeah, yeah. I think that. So I actually watched the first couple of movies again just in preparation for this episode, and I was just so distracted by the fact that they looked like there was children, like such small kids. The actors were.
Yeah.
Like I kept being
yeah.
distracted by like, oh my god, you're babies.
Yeah, they really were babies.
And I think I'm probably about their same age. I'm not really positive, but you know, I
Mm-hmm.
imagine they're in their 30s about where I am. So
Yeah, we were about the same age. I remember because when I was a kid, I very much wanted to be an actor. And obviously I made it, guys. I'm just kidding. But I remember going, well, I could have been Harry Potter. I could not have been Harry Potter.
Because you're
Uh,
American.
yep.
yeah, yeah.
And what also made me cringe is that they made 2 versions of the first book and movie because America wouldn't um, know what the meaning of the Philosopher's Stone was, so they made the Sorcerer's Stone.
Yeah, that's I always found
Oh,
that
yeah.
interesting. I wondered why they did that. It was just because Americans are weird and won't take a philosopher's stone for some reason.
Yeah, I blame it on America.
Well,
Just
that's
like they
fair.
changed the symbol of Ravenclaw into a raven, though it's an eagle. And as a Ravenclaw, that pisses me off.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's.
yeah.
I've always thought that was weird. I wondered why they did that.
Well, me and Jade went to the Universal Studios and we asked one of the employees, and she said that it was because America wouldn't agree on using the eagle as their symbol because
Yeah.
it's the American national bird and apparently they cannot share.
That
How
sounds right.
petty is that?
Well, I mean, basically anything petty, you can pretty much rely on America doing that. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, are there any other books that had like changed their name, or is it just that one?
They didn't change the name. I mean, they just changed the symbol on their uniforms in the movies.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I never noticed that.
So, yeah, I mean, when you try to buy merchandise, you got like Gryffindor merchandise, then Slytherin merchandise, Ravenclaw merchandise, Hufflepuff merchandise, and the right Ravenclaw merchandise.
Well, so obviously I was going to ask what house you're in, but obviously you're a Ravenclaw, right?
Yeah, how did you guess?
Yeah, I actually would have guessed that, regardless of whether or not you had just mentioned it, because I know you do a lot of reading and stuff like that. So, and you're a very smart person. I am very friendly, but not good at any one particular thing. So I am definitely a Hufflepuff.
Nothing wrong with that, sir. I mean,
I
that's my second house. I'm a proud Ravenpuff.
There you go.
Or like the people in Godric's Hollow used to call me Rufflepuff, because I'm a very much Hufflepuff, but still a Ravenclaw.
There you go.
Makes sense. Yep.
Yeah, I think Ed's very much in the Hufflepuff category as well.
I am also a Hufflepuff. I did the little test online and everything, and I was very much Hufflepuff. I'm a good friend.
Yeah, well, that's always been my favorite house because it always feels like the one that's willing to take anybody who doesn't belong anywhere else.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
No, they're not like leftovers. Like,
oh no, but you don't have to be particularly brave or particularly smart or particularly cunning. It seems like they take anybody who just wants to be friendly and to help people.
Yeah, they're about loyalty and taking care of each other and everyone as a whole. Also, they're one of the best houses because they're close to the kitchen. So there.
Yep. That is the best reason for sure.
No.
Yeah, well, I do believe that everyone has all four characters in them. Like, you got all four houses in you, but just one more than the other. So I did an extended sorting quiz, and I don't recall the exact numbers, but I was like 27% Ravenclaw and then 18% Hufflepuff. No, then I would come out too low. 15% Gryffindor and like 9% Slytherin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I guess the sorting hat can just see what quality you have most in you and just place you there.
Yeah.
Because even though Neville Longbottom is very sweet and very loyal, he was brave at the right times.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's why he was in Gryffindor, but also could have been in Hufflepuff.
Mm-hmm. I guess now is probably a good time to talk about that with the sorting hat and everything, with people maybe being in like the wrong houses, like we were talking about. I think very much, and they actually say it, you do have somewhat of a choice in it. If your choice is strong enough, the sorting hat will kind of listen to you. Like there's, I think, some people that are so much in a house that it just kind of puts you there. But I think some people, if they have the determination enough, can kind of put themselves places, especially Gryffindor, I think, with that, because they are so brave and determined and everything. I think Slytherin could also do the same thing with how ambitious and everything they can be. I don't know if you guys agree on that, but
now I just see a picture of sassy Malfoy, like when he has the sorting hat on. You better put me in Slytherin, or my father will hear about this.
Uh-huh.
And the hat's just like, okay, chill, dude.
Okay.
So as far as people, I think that are sort of miscast in their houses, I can't think of a bigger example than Peter Pettigrew.
Yeah.
It seems very weird for him to have been a Gryffindor because, I mean, he's a Hufflepuff and or a Slytherin. Like, I don't see like bravery as being a key component of him as a character basically at all.
At all, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I disagree on the Hufflepuff because if he really was a Hufflepuff, then he would have been loyal to James and not sell him out to Voldemort.
That's
I
fair.
said his
That's
name.
fair. That's fair.
Oh no,
Oh no.
we can't say it.
Yeah. So you're right about that. I think he was very miscast as a Gryffindor.
Yeah.
I'm
Ugh.
wondering if though, like Ed was saying, maybe it was because he had already previously been friends with the guys in Gryffindor and just really wanted to push towards that direction.
Well, I think with like any personality and any like person, you're from your experiences and different things that happen in your life, it could be very easy to go from like a confident, brave person to kind of a sniveling coward from just if everything's just going wrong, if everything's, every time you try to be brave, you get shut down, injured, that kind of thing. I think those experiences could really change you. So maybe when that sorting hat first went on him, it's possible that he was brave and confident and everything. And then as life went on, that shifted.
I think he lost his most confidence when he turned into a rat when he tried to be an Animangus.
Yeah. I mean that would definitely be a hit to someone's confidence for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody else can see these cool, like a stag and like all this really cool stuff, and then you're a rat. Like that can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they turned into Animangi to fight with their werewolf friend, and he turned into a rat. That would be a chew toy.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true. And I also think if you have like a dark wizard coming to you and telling you to do things, you might lose a little bit of confidence in yourself too.
Yeah.
Yeah, depends. I mean, Sirius Black didn't got scared.
Yeah.
The Longbottoms didn't got scared.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
any other characters you can think of, Lisette, that you feel like are maybe miscast in the houses that they were put in?
Whew, that is a very good question. Well, I think Minerva McGonagall was also a Gryffindor when she was a student, but I would definitely put her in Ravenclaw.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, because she's the head of Gryffindor.
Yeah. So I would assume that meant she was Gryffindor as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think when you first see the movie, there's that plague where you see that James was Seeker for the Gryffindor team, and right next to his name is Minerva McGonagall on the same team. So,
oh yeah,
I guess she was a Gryffindor too, and she's also the head of Gryffindor. It only makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's a good shout there. I agree with that. Yeah.
Well, and honestly, I think a lot of the like misplacement, I think, is just for ease of storytelling, to make it much easier if all of your main characters are in the same house. They're gonna be together most of the time.
Yeah.
You need like different personality traits and stuff for the different characters. It's easier storytelling, I think.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. But if you look at the main, like, 3 or 4 characters, including Neville, I think you got all the 4 houses there. Like, Harry would be in Gryffindor, Hermione in Ravenclaw, Neville in Hufflepuff, and Ron in Slytherin. Or maybe switch around Ron and Harry.
But... Yeah, that's actually what I would say.
Yeah, switch around. Yeah, because the Weasleys are always Gryffindor for sure. They have that like from like poor pauper to hero kind of mentality about them.
And they seem to face a lot of adversity and always kind of do it with a positive attitude and a smile on their
Yep.
face.
Exactly.
And that's actually what makes I actually think the heart of the entire Harry Potter series is actually just the Weasley family, and the way that they almost never feel, you know, put down by their circumstances that are not always positive.
Yeah. And then Harry was almost put into Slytherin, but he so badly did not want to be. He was just like, not Slytherin, that he got put into Gryffindor.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but I read a fan theory, or it was confirmed by J.K. Rowling, I'm not sure, that he was almost put in Slytherin because the Sorting Hat could sense he who should not be named soul inside of him, because he was a Horcrux.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
that's why the Sorting Hat was confused.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and move on to book number 2. How did so you read book number 1 and then you got book number 2? Did that live up to the expectations of the first one?
The book or the movie?
The book.
The book lived up to expectations. Yes, sure. It sure did.
So what is your favorite book in the series, I should ask?
My favorite book is The Goblet of Fire.
That's probably my favorite as well. So in anything in book 2 that still stands out to you in terms of the story, that anything that really just still captures your attention today?
Well, I just really like how you at first don't catch on that Harry is talking parcel tongue to the snakes, but then later on, while everyone looks at him like that, you're like, oh, duh. He at first talked to the snake in the zoo, and then he talked to the snake during the dueling class.
Yep.
Yeah, I really like that too.
Yeah.
That's an element that is actually kind of lost in the movies because they have to show him doing it. And so immediately that's the case.
It's true, because in the book it's just like he's just talking and then everybody's weirded out about it. And they're like, what? You weren't speaking English there. Yeah, that definitely goes over better in the books for sure.
Yeah, I agree. That's really really good shout out. How did you feel like the second movie did, according to the book?
It could have been so much better.
Yeah,
but that's with all the movies.
For sure. I think a lot of that comes down to being on such a limited time. I feel like at least the casting, I think, was really well done for the most part.
Oh yeah, sure. But I do remember, I mean, this is about the third book, that when I first saw Sirius Black and Remus, I was like, they look nothing like I pictured them.
Yep.
How did they look to you in your head?
Well, Sirius Black, his face looked good, but he looked taller in my head when I read the book.
Oh yeah.
Especially while he would hug Remus, that he would at least be just as high and not smaller. And Remus, well, I don't really remember, but when I first saw him, I was like, not really like I pictured him, but okay.
Yeah,
I would agree on Remus. I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's just the weird pencil thin mustache they gave him.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, he looks a little bit more I don't know, villainous, if that's the right word, than I thought he would be. He kind of looks like an old-timey villain, that guy.
Yeah. I'm so bad with some of their first names. Remus is Lupin, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that kind of works for him because he was one of those characters that they were automatically he might be a bad guy, especially since he was the third defense of the dark arts teacher that they had, and the other two were just one was working with Voldemort directly, he was on the back of his head.
Yeah.
And then the next one was just the most sniveling, terrible coward. and just terrible. Like he was just awful.
That
Yeah.
he's actually one of my favorite characters in the whole series, though, just because of how like just terrible and awful he is, and like sometimes like most of the characters in the show, if they're evil, they're directly connected to Voldemort.
Yeah.
I think he's not evil; he's just incredibly incompetent and selfish.
Yeah.
And so to have
Yeah.
a character who's not necessarily a good person, but not necessarily connected to Voldemort is a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, he was so incompetent that even Voldemort didn't even want to be involved with him.
Yeah.
I love characters like that. I love characters that are just so like grossly incompetent because I mean there are a lot of people like that in real life, so you got to make sure that's represented.
He's
Yeah.
probably like my second like most hated character because he's just such a like sniveling little like bastard. We'll get to the other one
I'm sure we will.
later.
It's all the same person for everybody.
Probably
I'm
the most
sure it
evil
is.
character in the whole thing.
Yep.
I'm sure it's everyone's worst character in the book and movies, but she's portrayed it so well
So
that
well.
even when I see her in different movies, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, I like
mean,
that.
when I
Like
saw
we
her
can
in
already tell that we're
Maleficent,
talking about the same person.
Oh yeah.
when I saw her in Maleficent and she was the pink fairy, I was like, ugh,
You're like no, don't trust her.
Yeah,
no.
yeah. That one was cast so well. Like she did such a good job at being, just like so fake nice and just terrible.
Yes.
We'll get say on book 3 right now. Book 3 is probably my second favorite book in the series
It's a really
because
good
I'm
one.
just always been a big fan of werewolves, and so that kind of had a lot to do with werewolves. How'd you feel about book 3?
Book 3 was awesome as well.
That's one where it really like started to lean into like the darker themes. One thing that I always really enjoyed with Harry Potter, both the books and the movies, is they really like the books grew up with the characters. Like they did a really good job at like the first book was very like whimsical. There was a lot of sense of danger and everything, but the themes like were a lot more geared to kids. And as it starts getting older, so book 3 is when he like actually hits being a teenager and everything, and that's when it's starting to go into like the darker things, like the why am I
Dementors?
Dementor? Yeah,
Yeah.
the Dementors. Those are terrifying.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of really cool. And then Sirius is such a cool character because he's like, at first you're like, oh, he's this evil Death Eater that just broke out of prison, and he's for some reason attached to Harry as his godfather and everything, and he's gonna try to kill Harry. And then you find out that he's just a really awesome person that got blamed for everything, which is something in America we can really relate to. Like people end up in prison all the time for things that they didn't do.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty universal thing. I think a lot of people can relate to someone who, was in the wrong place at the wrong time or upset the wrong person and suffered consequences they weren't responsible for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I really like some of the darker themes they start to explore in this one. Are there any memories of this particular book that stick out to you, Lisette?
Well, I really like what was standing out to me was the struggle for Harry finding a positive or a great memory to cast a good Patronus.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I really loved how you saw his transformation through that, and that he finally could perform a great Patronus when he thought that he saw his father saving his life.
Mm-hmm.
And Sirius.
Yeah, I do appreciate the personal growth that Harry goes through in this book, because he does start to find links to his past that he hadn't had before.
Yep. That was one thing I really enjoyed with that book too. Is I've always really liked the concept of um like self-fulfilled prophecies. Like I always like in Shakespeare, my favorite was always Macbeth. Don't say that on a stage. Um, but the with them having that item that made it for Hermione so she could go to the different classes and everything. And then they go back and fix everything, and you're kind of seeing it as it goes through. Um, it was really cool, and it was a really interesting way to get through that story. We won't talk about how they never talk about that item again when they could have used it so many times throughout the rest of the story. I'm sure there was some reason why, but
But Hermione needed extra classes, okay?
yeah. Could you imagine just taking extra classes so you get like this other worldly powerful item that messes with time? Like, here you go.
Just so that you can be in school more.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm also a person that has never really liked, schooling much in general, but I can't imagine wanting to do that much more that you would literally change time for it. Much less be an adult that was like, yeah, here's an item that can change time, child.
Yep. I mean, we could really use that item for this podcast. It might help us get through a lot.
Oh, and what I really liked in this book, I'm not sure if it's this book or the next, but when Molly sends a card or a letter to Harry Potter and she just sticks the whole envelope full of stamps and just uses a little square for his address and just a face on the mailman makes me laugh every time I read it. So they left it out the movies.
Yeah. That's actually a character that doesn't get talked about enough. I think the Weasley mom is really a great character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really.
One of my favorite parts of the entire series is actually right towards the end in the last book when she kind of stands up and basically saves her children.
Oh yeah.
Oh hell yeah.
She
stands up between Ginny and Bellatrix Lestrange and says, "Not my daughter, you bitch," and just blast her like brilliant.
Yeah, and it made it so climactic because they actually let her use the word bitch in that movie.
Yep.
And you're just like, oh.
Yeah, she was always just so awesome and so caring and sweet, but then she always had that side to her that you like, that mom side that you don't want to piss off. Like they really show that in the second book when they destroy the car and she sends the howler to Ron.
That was one of my favorite things too. Yeah.
Oh my god.
I love that howler. Or when they first get back to the burrow, where have you been?
Yeah.
I actually really like the way they did that part in the movie in particular.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That actress did a great job.
Yelling at her sons and then very sweetly to Harry, "Time for spot and breakfast."
Yep. That whole family. I love that family. The dad is great. Just so caring. They're such a good, caring, just awesome family that everybody wishes that they could have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
So we'll go ahead and move on to book 4. What you said was your favorite. Was that Goblet of Fire?
Yeah.
What makes that book your favorite?
I just love how you meet all the other characters from the different schools and how they participate in a bigger tournament and do all the tasks and with all the things they have to figure out how to compete and survive.
Mm-hmm. It definitely felt a lot more dangerous. Like it gave a lot more danger to the world, just even outside of Voldemort and the Death Eaters and all of that. Like it kind of explored that like there are kind of a lot of things in this magical world that will kill you if given the chance.
It populated the world a lot better too, which was really nice. It felt like, oh, okay, so it's not just British people that are wizards. Like that's
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And they have these big tournaments and all that kind of stuff. That was one thing I loved about it. Was just I like a good tournament. They're
Oh yeah.
fun,
Oh yeah.
and that's what that
Yeah.
one's all about.
Yeah.
One thing that bugs me though is that fans later pointed out that you need a permission slip from your parents signed that you can go to a nice village to drink a butterbeer, but you don't need a permission slip to enter a deathly tournament where you could get killed. Like,
Oh yeah, sure, you know.
Yep.
what the hell is going on in that world?
Yeah, that's true. I never really thought about that, but that's very
I mean,
funny.
danger is fine. Underage drinking is not. I mean, to be fair, you can sign up for military in our world at 18,
Yeah.
but you can't get a
Drink
beer
until 21.
until you're 21.
Oh, okay, here you can't.
Here, yes.
Yeah,
yes,
over in Europe,
America.
I think the age of the legal age is like what, 14 in most places.
Here it's 18 to legally drink.
I know it's like younger in a couple places in Europe, maybe England or something like that.
I know Greece, it's like 15.
Yeah,
Or it was. I don't know if it's changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, either way, like in a lot of places, you literally legally are able to go and fight something and die before you're able to drink.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's such a messed up priority that actually does mirror the real world, which is kind of weird.
Yeah. They did put a stipulation to it in the Goblet of Fire, but it was for that year specifically, and it wasn't in the past.
Mm-hmm.
That you had to be I think you had to be a 6th year, if I'm
Yeah,
remembering
you had
right.
to be at least 17 to enter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's why everybody was so mad at Harry, even though he didn't do anything.
Yeah. I like
because the twins was drinking their aging potion, but that didn't work.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember that. That was fun.
Because they were only 16.
Oh yeah, the twins were always some of my favorites. I loved
the twins are great.
Yeah.
I love
one
joke,
fan theory where those twins were put in different houses, just like the petal twins. And they would just steal each other's ties and just make mischief and then lose the other house points.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That would make sense. That's funny. I really liked it. Goblet of Fire was like the first time where I felt like the movies started to be more like it felt like a little bit more in line with the books, and the movies just became a little bit better.
Yeah, I did really miss some of the things in the maze that they had to do or get through.
Yeah, my favorite thing in that entire book they didn't even touch on, and that was the Sphinx. Why did they leave out the Sphinx? That was like the most important part of that whole test, and they just cut it out. I love riddles and that kind of stuff, and it was a Sphinx with a riddle. Like,
my guess would be the cost of the CGI to CGI the Sphinx.
Yeah, and make it look good. Well, they had dragons. They had dragons in that same.
I mean, that's true.
Movie, and the dragons looked really good. But
yeah, and they had the merman and the Grindylows.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The mermen. That's what I was gonna say a minute ago. The mermen were creepy.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
If you have seen Peter Pan with mermaids and The Little Mermaid with mermaids, then you wouldn't expect creatures like that to be a mermaid as well.
Oh yeah.
But it makes a lot more sense for them to be like monstrous looking and like different because they're I can't talk.
Physiologically?
Yes. They're different. So they wouldn't look like
us.
Just like a hot woman with half of her body a fish. Like it wouldn't work that way.
Personally, I subscribe to the reverse mermaid.
Yeah. Human legs and genitalia.
But yeah, I think Goblet of Fire is arguably my favorite as well, because I really like that they, the movies came into its own too, and this book really did a good job of fleshing out the world.
Yep.
So we'll go ahead and move on to the next book in the series, Order of the Phoenix. What's the first thing that stands out to you about Order of the Phoenix? Is that?
Well, I really loved how they made Grimmauld Place. How they just made that appear and disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Street.
Yeah, I like this book too, because it explores more of the characters in the wizarding world. Like you meet Tonks, and you meet a lot of other characters who aren't necessarily immediately affiliated with Hogwarts.
Yep.
Good. Yeah, and I like most of the cast they had for these people too. Like especially the later it gets in the series, the more the people that they cast kind of were what I envisioned when I read them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Tonks was always so cool. Like, not like a massive character. Like, she definitely has her time, but yeah, just always just kind of fun and cool. Just kind of like, she just shows up in that book, and she has the cool hair, and she does like fun stuff with her faces, and just kind of like messes with everybody.
Yeah. And I like the whole concept of like the sort of underground wizarding resistance to what's going on with the Ministry of Magic and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Just a sort of underground resistance concept was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I love how everyone was surprised that Snape was in the Order of the Phoenix too.
Yeah. It definitely. I think this is where you start to see a lot more of the layers of Snape.
Yeah.
And that's very cool, because he's such a complex character. There's not a lot of characters like in literature that have such a good like building of multiple layers like Snape does.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's always funny with Snape too, because like he's a dick for sure, but he always he never did anything in particular that would make Harry truly believe that he was like a bad guy. But throughout all the books, Harry was always just like, it's Snape. He did it.
He was really suspicious of him
by
his behavior.
Yeah.
And one thing I also really love is that apparently Alan Rickman first asked J.K. Rowling to tell him more about the character before he agreed to play the role.
Mm-hmm.
And he was perfect.
Oh yeah.
And he was the only one who knew exactly what his transformation throughout the books would be.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, because when those first movies came out, the other books weren't done yet. So
yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, I actually think Alan Rickman made me like Snape as a character a lot more than I was kind of supposed to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Just because he's such a he was such a cool like actor. Everything he did was just so cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely had some really good like actors for a lot of the roles, like him. And then I love Gary Oldman as an actor. He is amazing, and he did such a good job with
Definitely.
Yeah, with as Sirius, he's just so like at first like he comes off as crazy and everything, and then he just has such a warm side to him. He's just such a good character actor that he just can do anything. But anyway.
Yeah.
So I think this one is just a really good book for setting up kind of the fact that Harry isn't alone, and in fact is maybe even a small part at the time of the larger resistance growing in the wizarding community.
Yeah.
The one thing I think I hated the most about this, particularly in the books though, is like this is the start of the next couple of books where Harry's just so whiny in the next couple of books.
Yeah.
Like especially in this one where he's like sitting at the Dursleys, unable to go and like help everybody else while they're sort of preparing to sort of fight this war.
Yeah.
And he's just like, why am I not a part of it? And it feels like he thinks he's so center to everything that's happening. And you're just like, just stop whining, Harry.
Yeah, the teen angst really starts coming out, and
Yeah.
like starting at like 4, with like Harry and Ron being at each other's throats like throughout. And then this one, and then this book was actually the first book that I went to the release of. I went with my mom, and we went and got it, and then we read it together. And so I have a really good memory of the book. So for a long time in my mind, it was my favorite book. Just more of the experience, because it's a really good story. But if you ever want to hate a character in anything, like if you want good writing for like a really like bad, horrible character that you just want to hate, it's Umbridge.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
She is just awful. Like that pen that she makes them write.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's like I guess that's the best time to start talking about her. As we all alluded to, I'm sure this is everybody's least favorite character in these books.
Yeah, and luckily her name is perfect, because instead of Umbridge, I call her Bitch.
Yeah, very accurate.
Yep,
I like how that when they wrote the character, and it's well represented in the movies. There's like this really sharp like dichotomy between she wears pink and she has all this cat stuff and has such this like fake nice persona, and then there's just like literally a person that I feel is like worse than Voldemort underneath that.
Yeah. I honestly think she's the worst bad of the whole franchise.
Yeah.
And it's funny that Filch, because he was always a character that you're always like, I don't really like you. You're just a jerk. And he's like in love with her.
It's funny because they actually explain a lot more how Voldemort is a terrible person in this, because obviously the more Horcruxes he makes, the more parts of his soul go away, the more kind of evil he becomes. Umbridge doesn't have that excuse.
Yeah.
No.
She's just bad. Like
Yeah, I mean, just to show how bad she is, she interrogates people with Dementors in the room, and she just happily sits there with her cat Patronus. How fucked up is your mind if you can cast a Patronus while other people are suffering like that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And when she turns everybody against Cho because Cho like ratted them out, and then you find out, like, that was another cool thing that Snape did. Like, one of his like subtle cool things is in front of everybody, when she tells him to like use that potion to like make him speak the truth, he's like, you made me use the last of it on Cho. And then that's the like realization that she didn't betray them. Well, she did in a way, but it wasn't her fault.
Yeah.
But you talk movie. In the book, it was her friend that joined.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's been a while since I've read the books, and I rewatched all the movies like very recently. So
yeah.
And what I really missed is that they had those coins made by Hermione that would look like, I think it was a gallon. And they could like change the writing on it to set a date and time when they would meet next.
That's right. Yeah.
And there was a spell on it that if they would snitch, it would spell it out on your forehead in zits.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
that you were the snitch.
Yeah, that's right. That's funny. How cool was the room of requirement? Like, who wouldn't want a room like that?
Awesome! Fuck yeah!
Yeah. That was like one of the coolest things I think in Harry Potter, as far as like something that if I could have one thing from that book, it would be that, because like, who doesn't want a room that literally is anything you want it to be when you walk into it?
Yep. It's whatever you need at the time, which I think, didn't they discover it like whoever had figured it out, wasn't it? Because they needed a bathroom, wasn't it
Um,
something like that?
well, I think in the books it was Neville who figured it out, who was just
Yeah.
walking around, was like, where can we train with the Dumbledore's army? Because he was
Hmm.
really desperate to get better,
Mm,
to avenge his parents, I guess.
hmm.
So he was really looking back and forth, and that's how he found the Room of Requirement.
Yeah.
And then when he found it, of course, Hermione had read about it in Hogwarts history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just remembered an important person that comes in. I believe she came in this book was Luna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she well she made like little appearances in other books, but I think this is where she becomes like a more main character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's when Harry first sees, I don't remember the name of the creatures that pull the carriages. Huh?
Thestrals.
Yes.
Thestrals, yeah. What cool
And
creatures those are too.
yeah.
Those are awesome.
Yeah, Luna was always one of my favorite characters because she's so sweet and adorable and so weird, and I just love it with her and how
Yeah.
just like nice and caring she is, even though people pick on her constantly. Like she's a very relatable character. Her and Neville both are just so. I think they're some of the most relatable characters to a lot of people,
Yeah.
especially going through like high school and that kind of stuff.
That's what I was so sad that in the the last book, Neville said that he needed to find Luna to tell her that he loves her.
Mhm.
And I was so upset they didn't end up together because they're so perfect together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the pairings sort of at the end that we'll get to, we're kind of I maybe we're put together just for the sake of not being what was expected.
Yeah, probably.
Anything else to say about that before we move on?
Well, just that Luna is a character that I really relate to.
Yeah.
But
What
also Tonks and Molly. If you mix
Yeah.
those three in a blender, then you got me.
There you go.
that's a good bunch of characters.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. What is it in particular about her that you relate to?
Well, Luna is like eccentric to say. And I was always like the eccentric one while in high school, so I was always picked on and the weird one. So that's how I relate to Luna, and I just always try to be myself and be friendly, just like she is, and just accept that you can change how others pick on you, but just be friendly and hope for the best.
Mhm.
I think I relate to Molly. Well, I work with kids and I just know how to have fun with the kids, but if you need to be firm, I can be. If you reached the point where it's gone too far, then you surely know you've gone too far.
Yeah.
And Tongs, I just relate to that. I'm loyal to something. If I say that I will do something, I will be committed to it. Like how she's in the Order of the Phoenix, and even though she just birthed to Teddy, she's like, you need me at the front fighting. There's a war going on, so my mom and dad will take care of Teddy, and I will be there.
Mhm.
Period.
That speaking of which, that's actually one of the saddest parts of
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
I think it's we get a little bit later on. Well, we'll get there. Let's go ahead and move on to book number 6. So what did you remember in particular about the Half-Blood Prince?
That at first I thought the Half-Blood Prince was Voldemort, and then when I finished reading and I figured out it was Severus, I was like, whoa, mind blown.
Yeah, I think that was one of the biggest like reveals of the series.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
kind of the last big one actually.
And really didn't show in the movie. Like they
No.
just
No.
brushed over it, because throughout that book, like he just kept using that book that he found with the Half-Blood Prince, and like there was all these different like neat little notes and things, and there was like one scene in the movie, but it was a lot of a bigger part, and it really like let you relate to Snape more, especially after you figured out that it was him. You got to learn a lot more about him, which was really cool. This was actually my favorite book.
Yeah, I think you only figure it out in the seventh or the eighth movie when Harry tries to use one of those spells that was in the book on Snape, that he's like, "Don't use my own spell on me."
Yeah.
And that's when you're like, when you figure out in the movies that it was Snape.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think it was in the sixth. It was at the end when he runs and tries to confront Snape after Dumbledore.
Oh yeah.
And that's when he does it.
Yep.
But yeah.
You're correct, sir.
So this that just reminds me of a really funny joke that I'm sure my son heard somewhere. That was really funny. It's a Harry Potter joke. How do you find the gym at Hogwarts?
How?
You look for the dumbbell door.
Oh, that one hurts.
Oh my god. That is so bad.
Ron is actually the one that told me that one. I'm not sure exactly where he got it, but I just thought it was so funny.
Yeah.
When you said Dumbledore just now, I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta make sure I get that in on this show.
I'm proud. As the person that used to do the joke of the week that we just kind of forgot about, that one hurts me to my soul.
Anything else to say about Half-Blood Prince before we move on to the final book?
Well, I think it was such an important moment and such a like sad thing, and something that I remember at the time, like everybody that was reading the books, you had to be so quiet about the end of that book because of Dumbledore dying. It was such a big thing. Spoilers, everybody! Dumbledore died.
Yeah, spoilers on like what the newest thing. Well, besides Fantastic Beasts, the newest thing's what, 10 years old or something like that. So.
Yeah.
I think we're good on the spoiler alert for this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really a cool moment. Not cool, a sad moment, but a big moment. And especially that Snape had that whole part with Dumbledore telling Snape that it had to be him
to kill. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so heartbreaking because they couldn't, like, they didn't want to do it to
Malfoy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this book definitely had a lot of really cool stuff. Like, I think you get a lot more from Snape and a lot more from Dumbledore as well.
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
like basically the last book and this one.
Yeah,
you get to understand like their relationship a lot better, and just a lot more of like Dumbledore's like imperfections and wrong choices that he made
mm-hmm.
kind of come through a lot more starting in the last book and then into this one in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, up until then, Dumbledore is portrayed as this guy who basically does the right thing at all times and always makes the right decisions and is always like quick at making decisions.
Yeah.
And I think a lot in this book, you see a lot of like his hesitancy to do certain things actually led to making things a lot worse.
Oh, and I just remember that one part is so heart-wrenching when they go to get the Horcrux in that cave, and he has to drink the water.
Oh yeah.
Oh
the potion, and he just gone mad.
Yeah.
And just begging Harry to stop.
Oh,
yeah.
It's so sad. And they did such a good job in the movie with that too. Like the actor. Oh, you're just like, no.
Like,
No,
just
give
stop.
me more.
For sure. Yeah, and I like the whole idea. Horcruxes have kind of come into play at this point, and you kind of are starting to see the whole picture and how cool like the idea of Horcruxes is.
Yeah. Well, it's a lich. It's a phylactery.
Yeah.
Like he's the craziest lich of all time because he has 7. Is it 7 or 8?
It's 7.
7.
7. The storytelling number 7s and 3s.
Yeah.
Um,
Nerd.
That one I learned in school, guys.
I didn't learn that in school.
Look at me being learned.
Look at you remembering stuff. Anything else to say on that before we move on to the last book? All right. Move on to book 7 and the Deathly Hallows. What do you guys really remember about those books, Lisette? Or that book
I
and those
really
movies?
loved that book. I really love that book, but like I said, how some people just ended up with the wrong person, according to me. No, not happy about it, but yeah, what can you do about it?
What would you have done differently?
Well, I guess a lot of people expected Harry and Hermione to end up together. And like I said, I would have ended up Neville and Luna together.
That one for sure.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people expected Malfoy to end up with Pansy Parkinson.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was. Yeah, I think, like I said, I think some of those choices, because obviously by now this was a huge, hit series, and J.K. Rowling had a lot of like expectations on her, and I think she kind of decided to go a different direction than what she had originally planned.
Yeah.
Yeah. I, for one, actually like Hermione and Ron a lot better than Hermione and Harry. I think they actually work better. I like that it because it's kind of a more real relationship in a way, because every now and then you find like a solid good relationship with somebody that is similar to you and the same as you, but most of the time in the real world people find somebody that is a little different, that does kind of drive them nuts, but part of that is what makes you love them so much. So that I feel like that relationship is real. And I feel like it works really well.
Yeah, because a lot of the time, I mean, I think you can have two people who are a little bit more. I'm not sure quite the right word, but there's like a really dominant personality, and there's someone who's not, doesn't care quite as much about some things, is a little more willing to give. As in, two people who are willing to give a lot can still work together, but two people who are really strong-headed and dominant sort of have the main character syndrome. They have a lot harder time having a relationship. And I think that's what Harry and Hermione were. Yeah,
I guess they were too good of a friends, Harry and Hermione.
Yeah.
They were like friend zoned, so it would have worked out anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think they had a thing for. I think Harry definitely had a thing for Hermione early on. But I think I actually think kind of what it is that they took too long to kind of admit that to each other.
Yeah.
And by the time those feelings had kind of become known to everybody, she was already kind of with Ron, and I think that's where a lot of the tension between him and Ron comes in later on.
Yeah.
As Harry kind of feels like he missed his window, and the thing standing in his way of potentially having a relationship with Hermione was that she's now with Ron.
Yeah, his best friend in the world.
Yeah. I really like this book and the two movies because it's kind of the more action type scenes, and you see a lot of the tension finally boil over into, you get to see a lot more of the cool wizarding stuff happen.
So I'm the oddity in this one. This was my least favorite book.
Okay.
For me, so part of why I like Harry Potter so much is Hogwarts. I love Hogwarts, and I understand that the story needed to deviate from it, but like they didn't get to do their final year, which could have been really awesome to see, like the things that you're learning as a seventh year. And then just it felt to me there was a big chunk of the book that was like, okay, we're in a forest, now we're in a different forest. Now we're in a different forest. And I get it, and like it was still a really good story. It just after the sixth book, it just felt a little lacking to me. But that's
I think it can be hard to properly close such a long and like such a epic saga of story. That I think for any writer, it's going to be really, really challenging to end that in a way that is satisfying to the most amount of people.
Yeah, I think any writing or anything like movies, books, comic book, anything like at the end is always the hardest part, and most of the time seems to fail. Like endings are just hard. I wouldn't say this one necessarily failed. It just wasn't my favorite.
Yeah. Well, what I really disliked is that in the books, Harry put the Elder Wand back with Dumbledore in his grave, and he repairs his own wand with it. And in the movie, he just breaks it apart and throws it down the bridge. Like,
oh yeah,
that was a little bit of the emotion behind it. Like, yeah, you definitely should. He definitely should have put it back in the grave. I agree.
Yeah, and repair his own wand with it.
Yeah, because that was such a dramatic moment in the books.
It also kind of gives in the books as well. It kind of gives Harry more closure with Dumbledore too, because he gets to go visit him and do that, and basically be like, it's done.
Because he didn't really get to say goodbye to him before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did really like the way that like they made Voldemort look in the movies. And especially like in the last two movies in this book, he looks like the really terrifying like creature that he comes to be over time. I really like the makeup job that they did and the actor that they had play him. I think that was one of the better things about the movies for sure.
Yeah,
definitely.
Whoever was the makeup artist on that entire show was really, really good at, because that's I always remember like the like weird lack of nose that they made him have.
Yeah.
Such a like definitive look. One of the things I'll always remember about those movies.
He's very monstrous for sure.
And he like gets more over time, which is really a really cool like progression to see.
Yeah.
Anything else to say about the? Oh, I guess we should talk about all the spoiler alert. I guess all the people that died. Like,
yeah,
they definitely made some interesting choices as far as like the people that died. Like, we were talking about Remus and Tonks.
Oh, it's heartbreaking.
So sad.
It was both
and
of them.
What I really missed is that they never really mentioned Teddy.
Yeah, what's that? Yeah, the poor boy that has no parents now.
Yeah, like at least acknowledge him.
Yeah. It's hard enough to have like one parent that died, and it kind of makes Teddy the entry point for the whole story kind of coming full circle, because both Harry's parents died trying to fight Voldemort. And now both of Teddy's parents are dead trying to fight Voldemort.
Yeah, the fact that they didn't mention that, and it's literally what started the entirety of the story with this kid's parents being killed. It is kind of a disservice that they didn't do that.
And then of course the twin that died.
Yeah,
I can't remember. I think it was George.
Fred.
Right? Oh, it's Fred.
Fred
Okay.
that dies. Yep.
Yeah, that's awful, because obviously I'm not a twin, but I am married to one, so I understand their sort of connection to each other, and how hard that would be to have like a built-in secondary person your entire life, and then they're just gone.
Yeah.
Well, what I loved in the movie is that you can really see the pain on George's face
Yeah.
because he really pictured his brother dead, and the
Yep.
other characters were just seeing the character like sleeping or something.
Yeah.
So his tears were just so hurtful
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. I think that definitely obviously is helped by the fact that they are real life twins. And
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
that particular idea is so relatable to the actor doing it.
Yeah.
That it's just you can definitely feel like the maybe one of the most real moments portrayed in the movies.
Mhm.
I think it was really interesting to kill off one of the twins because I think they're kind of a lot of people's favorite characters that no one really talks about because everybody loves them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're very lovable. They're very helpful throughout. A lot of the like neat items and things that they get, and spells that help them a lot are from them.
They just kind of going after like one of the most like inconsistent parts of the story to me though is they did just kind of ignore that there was a middle-aged man hanging out with their brother a lot. So on the Marauders map, Peter Pettigrew is sitting there
Oh,
with Ron the whole freaking time.
Oh yeah.
that's
And they
true.
just never noticed
They
or
never
told
cared.
him.
Yep.
They never cared.
Yeah, you would think at some point they'd be like, "Wait, why is this dude just always with my brother?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Why is your red called Peter Pettigrew?
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of loopholes
Oh yeah, for
both
sure.
in the books and the movies.
And anything
Oh, definitely.
this intricate, you can pick apart. It's
Yeah.
just it is what it is. Especially since it's mainly one person. Like J.K. Rowling might have had some help in crafting the story, but she mostly did it by herself, from my understanding. And one person can only see so many angles, right?
Yeah.
But that was always one of my funniest like nitpicks. Is just like you guys never thought to be like, hey, why is your rat on this map right here?
Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
Let's see, was there anybody else who died that was really impactful at the end of Deathly Hollows?
Dobby.
Oh yes, Dobby.
Oh yeah.
I knew there was another one. Yeah, poor Dobby.
Oh, how did I forget about Dobby?
Yeah.
Dobby's such a
yeah.
great character.
Yeah, I don't know how he escaped our mention until just now. Dobby's an incredible character. I loved him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a sad moment. He saves them and then he dies. And I love with Dobby that he is one character that they seem it kind of seems like they are in a way obligated to give him almost more respect than some other characters just because of how much disrespect he and his people have always kind of had. So like the fact that they give him like a proper grave and everything, I think it's really like important. And I think it's really interesting with that character. It's also just interesting with that like race of beings that they're just used that way. It's really sad.
What was
Yeah.
what was the other grumpy ass elf's name?
Creature?
Creature, yeah.
Yep.
He was hilarious. I liked him a lot.
Well, I just love Dobby, but what I really missed in the movies is that you didn't see his growth. How after he got fired from the Malfoys, started collecting socks and started to work at Hogwarts and got paid by Dumbledore because he wanted to, and started to wear the most crazy outfits and like a tea cozy on his head and everything, and how he gave Harry and Ron mismatching socks for Christmas every year. And
you also kind of miss out on Hermione's like elf liberation thing,
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
which
on
I
the
think is like
spoon.
one of her coolest things.
Yeah,
And actually,
but
one of the things
also
that like endears
Ginny is so
endears.
much more lame in the movies than she was in the books.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, in the books you really see why Harry falls in love with her. In the movies, you're just like, okay,
Okay.
you just noticed her now for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the surface, it actually almost kind of looks like a petty move on Harry's part because, like,
Yeah.
oh, you're gonna take Hermione. Oh yeah, well, I'm gonna do your sister
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
with no deeper explanation than that. It's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah. Oh, so one thing I just realized, and one thing I want to talk about, because we brought up Dobby and talked about how we kind of forgot to talk about him. We also have forgotten entirely to talk about actually probably my favorite character in the whole story, and probably the best father figure or one of the main like father figures that Harry ever had, Hagrid.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Hagrid is just such a great character. He's so kind and just so awesome. And I'm obviously a big animal
Innocent.
lover, and I just relate with that so much. Like how he just like those are his friends and his family, and it's just so he's just always there for Harry. And it's always sad like seeing him treated poorly by a lot of people, especially that are like higher up in the wizarding world, like Malfoy and his father, and but he's just this gentle giant,
Yeah.
literally gentle half giant.
Yeah, well, I just picture him as he thinks he's a sweet, cuddly bear, but he doesn't realize that actually he's a grizzly bear that endangers other people at times
Yeah,
with his cute little creatures that is a
Yeah.
fire-breathing dragon. But he's good in everything.
Mhm.
And
I,
all
I
the
love the
creatures.
part with is it probably gonna mispronounce the name like Argoth?
Mhm.
The spider, the giant spider.
Aragog?
Aragog. Yeah.
Aragog.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm so bad with names. With Aragog and like him dying and everything, and him having like a funeral for him, and like Ron and Harry are like, yeah, he tried to kill us, but okay.
Yeah. And then Slughorn just being like, can I get some of his venom, please?
Yep.
Yeah, he's Hagrid's probably one of my favorite characters too. He's really just so kind, so sweet the whole time. I think that
Yeah.
the thing that makes him not my favorite character is trying to read his dialogue in the books.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The way he talks, especially like in a couple years ago when Lisette got my son a copy of the first book, and I'm trying to like help Ronan learn how to read, and through it he's trying to read Hagrid's like very broken up speech, and I'm just like, yeah, it's weird. Sorry, dude.
It kind of makes sense though, because it kind of shows that he's a little less like learned.
Yeah, he's
Like
less educated. Yeah.
yeah, he just
Yeah.
missed out on a lot of that because like wasn't he expelled?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
got expelled in
Yeah.
his 4th year because they thought he opened a Chamber of Secrets.
Yeah.
Did they ever say what house he was in?
I think he was a Gryffindor.
Was he a Gryffindor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. He's very brave.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You kind of have to be to deal with
Large
magical
creatures
creatures.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any more thoughts on sort of the last two books, or the last book and the last two movies? Right. I assume probably Ed hasn't, but have you read like The Cursed Child and stuff, Lisette?
Yeah.
What did you think of that?
Well, everyone was very negative about The Cursed Child, so obviously I was curious and I read it. And I thought it was decent. It like um made sense in some ways, though it also was like they tried to add some more to the world of Harry Potter, but kind of failed, you know?
Mm-hmm. For anybody who doesn't know, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child is a sort of epilogue book that was actually a screenplay that was released a couple years after the final book. That actually chronicles the story of Harry and Ginny's son.
Yep.
I read through it. I think it was okay. I feel like there just wasn't as inspired as I wanted it to be, I guess.
No.
And I think that's kind of a failing of the Harry Potter series kind of since Deathly Hallows. Because I just haven't felt the same connection to like the Fantastic Beasts series.
Yeah, that one. I just watched that because it was on HBO Max and I hadn't seen them, so I watched the first two, and they're fine. But yeah, it's just kind of like picking and choosing stuff. Because I don't think I have it anymore. But years and years ago, there was like a small book that was Magical Beasts and Where to Find Them,
Yeah.
and it was literally just like explanations of all the creatures and like how to deal with them, and it was that guy and everything, but that's all it was. It was just like his notes.
Yeah,
And
you got the 3 school books. You got the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. You got Quidditch Through the Ages, and you got the little fairy tale book that Hermione got from Dumbledore.
Oh yeah,
Tales of Beedle the Bard.
Yep. Oh, that's another thing we never touched on was Quidditch.
Yeah. So I was just thinking that Quidditch to me was always kind of like the most minor thing. I know it's really a big deal for Harry, but as someone who doesn't really care much for sports, it was kind of like a.
It was fun to get to see like a wizarding sport. It was also one of those things that it's like, yeah, you have to have a permission slip for going into a town and having Butterbear, but like you can get bludgeoned, literally bludgeoned by bludgers.
But like sentient balls that are sent out to hurt you,
and then fall out of the sky.
There's a tent that you'd fall in, so you wouldn't get hurt.
Yeah, there you go. If you guys were to play Quidditch, what position do you think you would have been?
They wouldn't put me on the team.
I mean, fair.
I have no athletic ability at all. I'd be in the audience probably.
It's fair. Yeah, I think that's probably the right answer.
Yeah. Well, if I'd make the team, only if, I guess I'd be a chaser. But I'm not really great with catching, so
yeah.
I'd probably be in the stands just cheering on.
Yeah.
What about you, Jeremy?
I think I if I was going to do anything, I probably would have been the goaltender. I forget the term that they use for
Keeper?
Keeper. Yeah. I think it's probably where I would have ended up. I know I wouldn't have ended up being the seeker because I'm wearing glasses and I'm blind and I'm not going to see something that small ever. So.
I mean, Harry had glasses.
Yeah, I mean that's true, but maybe he's more detail oriented than I am.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that about covers it. The one other question I wanted to ask both of you. So I don't know if we asked directly. What is your absolute favorite character in the series? I know you said Luna.
Mm-hmm.
Would yours that be Hagrid? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I just love Hagrid. He's just, I don't know if this says something about me because I'm thinking back on things like in Harry Potter, like Hagrid is my favorite character. In Avatar: Last Airbender, Iroh is my favorite character. Like there's something about like finding like a father figure that isn't your father, that's just so caring and wise in ways. Like Hagrid has his ways of wisdom, like that are just incredible, and just how caring and true he always is, and how much I love how much respect Harry does give him, um, and the whole group. Like he's just always there for everyone, and I just hate seeing him mistreated. But yeah, he was just one that always stood out to me. The actor who played him did a phenomenal job in the movies to portray who Hagrid really was. I loved it, like when he actually was made the professor, and they like announce him, and he like stands up, and the whole like giant table like shifts, and everybody's like, "Oh God!"
Yeah.
He's just big and awkward and sweet and wonderful, and he loves animals. I don't know. He was just always my favorite.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that.
What about yours, Jeremy? What's your favorite Harry Potter character?
I know it's a little hard to say. I actually probably relate the most to Ron as a character. Just being somebody who's always kind of unsure of themselves, somewhat to a fault, and someone who doesn't know who they are or what they want until kind of they're pushed to find out.
Yeah.
I can really relate to him in a way. It's just that sort of way of being sort of a someone who doesn't know how to find out what they want or how to go about getting it. So I would say probably Ron, just because I see a lot of how I would behave in certain situations in him.
Okay.
And then just the whole Weasley family. I just love all of them. They're just so great.
Yeah.
The Weasley dad, like me being a father now and being older, I can relate a lot to a lot of things that he was going through too.
He's also kind of like the nerd dad.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't relate to that at all.
Yep. with his like love of like muggle things.
Yeah, that was always such an endearing little thing too, because it reminds me of like Little Mermaid or something like that, where you're just like, it's like a fork, and it's like, how do they use these? What is this for?
Yeah. It's a dingle hopper. No, wrong movie.
Yeah.
But what is it about Luna that makes her your favorite character? Is that?
Well, like I said earlier, I can just really relate to her and how she is so down to earth and friendly and still herself, even though people treat her differently because she is a bit eccentric.
Yeah.
And I just love how she is always just thinking outside of the box and just a bit dreamy, but always herself.
So one last question, and we'll go ahead and end the episode. If you could pick a direction for like a future book or future movie to go, whether it be like exploring a character from the past or exploring something from the future, what would you, if you could write a Harry Potter book right now, what would you do?
Oh, definitely about the Marauders.
Yeah.
About their mischief in high school throughout the years, and how they first met, and how they made the Marauders map and started to make mischief, and how James first became a father, and how they were all hanging around with the baby there, and just all that.
Yeah, I think a good like 15 year like going backwards from where the original book took place would be like a really nice filling out of the story. Seeing like Harry's parents and their growing up and all of the smaller events that happened in between that time.
Yeah, and how they formed the Order of the Phoenix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's great. That's pretty much what I think I would do as well. Anything to add to that, Ed?
I think I would just. It's hard to say because there's some characters like I would like to see more. Like it would be fun to have a book about Hagrid specifically, and like him growing up and his experiences, and him going and doing things like with the giants, like kind of like finding out like maybe like just his sides of things throughout, like him growing up, going to Hogwarts, and then like when he disappears for a while to go meet his brother and then take care of his brother, and meeting all the like giants and that kind of thing.
That'd be cool to kind of see, like even just like him doing like essentially side quests.
Yeah,
you know, nothing to do with like you in the main story, but just him like going in and finding all of these creatures and like his adventures to meet all of these creatures and to, you know, learn about them. And,
which I guess in a way they're already kind of doing, but without Hagrid with the
Fantastic
magical beasts.
Yeah.
Well, you can already read his story and how he meets the giants and everything sort of in the books.
Yeah.
But it would have been really cool if you could have just seen that more played out in a movie or a series or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, if they would make a series out of Harry Potter, but with like each chapter being an episode and everything that's in the book covered, sign me up. I would totally watch that.
I'm actually a little surprised that a Harry Potter television series has never been like brought up, or at least, you know, to the public.
They might do it. They're doing it with Lord of the Rings now. So.
I know. I'm super excited for that as well. I've said it on the show many times. A good TV series will always be better than even the best movie. Because you just have so much more time to explore the characters and their motivations, and you have more time to fall in love with who they are as characters.
Yeah,
definitely.
Movies are just so limited, you know.
Which is the same for books, which is like why the Harry Potter series is so loved. Even though a lot of people don't like the writer for like political views and different things, but
yeah, so I think this is just one of those cases. We won't discuss it a ton, but you just have to be able to separate the art that is beautiful and well done from the artist who is very flawed and maybe not aligning with what you feel is.
Yeah, we're all individual people, and we all have flaws.
A good artist most of the time is kind of a terrible person.
Or flawed in serious ways.
Yeah, exactly. I guess not a terrible person necessarily, but flawed, deeply flawed in a lot of ways. I mean, a lot of like, you know, I think a lot of like the Renaissance painters and how amazing they were and how revolutionary for their time. But if you know a lot of their like actual personal stories, you're like, ooh, I don't like a lot of what's going on here.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I love that because of her transgender phobia or whatever you may call it, some fan made a copy of the first book or some version of the first book, but with a transgender Harry Potter.
Oh.
Nice.
Nice. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and end the episode there. Lisette, I appreciate you so much for coming on.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I had a great conversation with you. And we'll have to have you on again at some point. I know at some point I want to do like a Disney episode, and I know you love your Disney stuff.
You know me so well.
So we'll have to have you on again. I know it's getting kind of late where you are, so we'll go ahead and let you go. But thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Yeah, you've been a wonderful guest, Lisette. Thank you so much.
You're both very welcome. I had great fun.
Good.
And there's so much more to talk about.
Oh,
I mean, we could have done it for hours longer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have to kind of try to force everybody to move on a little bit sometimes, and because we can all talk about it for hours. I mean, we've had tons of episodes that end up going over 2 hours. So
yeah.
Anyway, everybody, thank you for joining us here on the Nerdy Niche. We hope that you enjoyed our Harry Potter episode. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can go to the Nerdy Niche on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Reach out to us. We'll try to respond to you. You can find this episode anywhere you can find podcasts, as well as on YouTube. You can also check out our D&D Real Play podcast, Into the Elements. And we hope to see you guys there. And until next time, keep it nerdy out there.